Hello and welcome to another Tri-tutors video. In today's video we're going to be going through a model essay for Othello, a model literature essay. Please bear in mind that you should watch the literature essay skills video beforehand in order to fully grasp what I'm talking about here, because I'm going to be referencing sort of the technique that I would suggest to write a literature essay in this particular video. Also, please note that different teachers teach this section differently. So there are different styles of literature essays. So please be aware of that. Obviously, always follow what your teacher has said, because they have primed you in the way that they want you to mark and the way that they're expecting the essay to be produced. So take a few of the lessons that I'm going to go through, but also discard those which don't coincide with your teacher's particular style. So please remember that. So as I said, please go watch that literature essay skills video because I'm going to be referencing it. So if we look over here at our topic, and I've adapted this topic from a past matric paper, Shakespeare explores the dark side of human nature by focusing on the deplorable qualities displayed by certain characters. These qualities are responsible for the destruction of characters in Othello. Assess the validity of this statement with reference to at least two characters and themes. So the big thing is, once you get your topic in the exam, is not to freak out about it, because sometimes you're going to get a topic that's really simple, really easy, you've been preparing for it, and then you get a topic like this where at first it seems like this is so bizarre and this is complicated, and really if you just spend 5 minutes actually unpacking it and reading it more closely, it's not as difficult as it may seem. So this is something that I followed even when I was at university studying English, is I would be very careful to allocate myself time to reading the question and to planning it, to unpacking, and then actually to subsequently planning it, because that was going to give my essay direction and purpose and structure. So as first, it does seem very hectic. Remember, whenever they say assess validity, you always need to, or typically the answer is yes, it's valid, and you're just explaining why. So what we need to do now is we need to go with a pen or a highlighter or a pencil, and we need to unpack what specifically they're asking us. What information do they want to see? And it's really important to do this because, especially if you know your play very well, then you might fall into the trap of just writing out the story, or just writing out what you think, or you're just writing out a whole bunch of information because you want to show all that you've learned, and that is really not what we're looking for here. Remember, a literature essay is an argument, so you must only include relevant information. Once again, go to that skills video to understand that in more detail. But let's have a look over here. Shakespeare explores the dark side of human nature by focusing on the deplorable qualities displayed by certain characters. They are responsible for the destruction of the characters. So in a literature essay, you're typically not just going to have one thing to focus on. You literally have two, sometimes three things. So I've noticed my two things that I'm working on here. Number one, deplorable qualities. Number two, destruction of characters. And they've actually even specified to refer to two characters and themes. Even if they did not specify that, definitely try and do a character or a theme per body paragraph. So I'm looking here and I've decided, okay, I've got to define a deplorable quality and then how it leads to a destruction of a certain character. So I'm going to come up with two deplorable qualities and then how that leads to the destruction of two different characters. So remember, each body paragraph, it's not just one thing. It's not just a linear argument. There's usually two concepts at play. So now that I've understood it, I can get into the next stage, which is planning. So planning is absolutely essential. It's something that you need to practice. It's really a skill. You can't obviously spend too much time on planning in an exam situation, but you need to plan at least what your characters and your deplorable quality is going to be for each paragraph. You also need to write out your quotes, and so I've also got some quotes videos. So please have a look at those in helping you understand what to quote, how to quote, etc. And so you need to ensure that you plan what quotes you're going to use and which deplorable qualities and which characters' destruction you're going to use. Remember, in your body paragraphs, you need to use peel, point, explain, example, or evidence link. So see the other video for that. Now, the reason why planning is so important is because you can see it's featured in the introduction. In the introduction, you have to have a clear direction of where your essay is going. You cannot be guessing at this point. This is not a novel. This is not supposed to leave me in suspense. This is a critical argument. So by reading your introduction as your marker, I should have a very clear understanding of what your argument is and also have a roadmap as to what is going to come next. So I always start off with in and then the playwright and then the play. So in Shakespeare's Othello, and now I'm going to rephrase the question and put it into an argument. You can really use the same words as a question. You can just mix them around a bit to ensure that it creates an argument and not a question. The inferior qualities of human nature are explored through the character and plot development. So I've made a general statement, and now it sort of started off my argument, and my next sentence is going to elucidate my argument further. These deplorable characteristics of human nature ultimately result in the demise of the characters in the play. Do you see how I'm not being secretive or subtle or even clever about my argument? I'm going straight to the point, using the words of the question, telling the marker straight what I am arguing. And then the last sentence in your introduction, this is where your planning is key, because I actually have to tell the marker what I'm going to talk about in body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. The concept of revenge results in the destruction of Cassio's reputation, and the theme of jealousy contributes to the demise of Desdemona. So do you see how there I've got my 2 body paragraphs already laid out? Now, something to note is a literature essay can get to sound quite repetitive if you don't have a good vocabulary. So always try, obviously, to use a better vocabulary and to avoid repeating yourself. But because of the nature of it, where we keep wanting to go back to our point, we keep wanting to go back to our argument, it's okay if it's a little bit repetitive in your point and your link in your body paragraphs. So just bear that in mind. And if you are a stronger student, then you can go ahead and use different vocabulary to help you out. But if you are a weaker student, my personal advice would be is to rather sound a tiny bit repetitive than be vague on what your argument is. Make sure your argument is really, really strong in your essay and throughout, in your introduction and throughout your essay. So moving on. Now we're going to get to body paragraph 1, and we are going to see the use of Peel in this paragraph. So our first sentence is our point. I'm going to say my point of my paragraph and link it to my argument. The human tendency towards revenge is examined through the temporary demise of the character of Cassio. So it's very clear there. I've used my deplorable quality, revenge, and then I've used which character's demise it leads to, Cassio. So because of my vocabulary, I haven't had to repeat deplorable quality. I could say the human tendency. But do you see how it's still the point? I still have those 2 key factors. I've still referenced the question. And now I'm going to get into what I like to group together as the EE, which is the explaining and the evidence. Now I pay very close attention, because I'm not retelling the story, but I'm using examples from the story. And so I've taken an event and I've condensed it into a sentence and made it as though it's a fact and not as, okay, now I'm going to tell you the story of Othello. So pay close attention to that every example that I'm bringing, every reference to the text has, it's there to prove this ultimate point that I'm making. And I'm going to keep linking back to this point sentence. Also note the use of the present tense and the integration of quotes. Iago's disappointment in not being promoted to the role of lieutenant prompts him to scheme to get revenge on Cassio, who has managed to attain the position. Iago believes that he is worth no worse a place than Cassio and seeks to incite the theme of revenge to quell his disappointment. Despite Cassio's proclamation that he has very poor and unhappy brains for drinking, Iago convinces Cassio to drink and schemes with Rodrigo to provoke Cassio into a fight, which will damage and ruin his reputation. Cassio subsequently loses his position as lieutenant as well as his honor. The loss of his reputation diminishes Cassio as he mourns the death of the immortal part of himself. Iago's retributive plot, which stems from severe resentment, causes Cassio to wallow in despair and presents Iago with another opportunity to embroil Cassio in his ultimate revenge scheme against Othello by advising Cassio to plead with Desdemona privately regarding his job title, whilst manipulating Othello into misconstruing the conversation. And then, apologies, I've written embroils instead of to embroil. So that's my EE. So I've explained myself. I've explained how this concept of revenge has led to Cassio's demise as a character. And remember, you always want to be asking the question of how, or answering the question of how, not what. So did you notice I didn't tell you what happened? I told you how revenge caused Cassio's demise. And now my last sentence, I'm going to use my linking word, which is thus, and I'm going to conclude this paragraph by linking my point of the paragraph to the point of the essay. The disgraceful quality of revenge is thus responsible for the destruction of the character of Cassio. So maybe to you it sounds repetitive, but this is a key part of the paragraph of the literature essay, is a linking at the end. Moving on to the second body paragraph, where I've got a new character and a new deplorable quality. Furthermore is a nice way to link the two paragraphs together if you're continuing on the same track. If you are providing a counter, then you need to use however. Furthermore, the theme of jealousy is also prevalent in the play and represents a key deplorable quality of human nature. Jealousy is responsible for the destruction of the character of Desdemona along with her and Othello's marriage. So I've used two sentences here, but that's okay as long as it's right at the beginning there. I've got my deplorable quality, I've got my character's demise. Now I'm going to answer the question of how I came to that conclusion. And I'm going to present my opinions as facts because I cannot use personal pronouns. Iago manipulates Othello in his ultimate quest for revenge by inciting Othello's jealousy. Also just notice the use of formal language. Even though Othello is warned that jealousy is the green-eyed monster, Othello is moved and poisoned by Iago's words and is compelled to observe her well with Cassio. As Iago suggests, Othello's honesty, integrity, and trusting nature are overtaken by his jealousy with regard to Desdemona. He misconstrues Cassio and Desdemona's interaction as threatening his reputation and honor, and becomes extremely jealous to the point where he brutally murders his wife Desdemona without credible evidence of any misdemeanor. And now I'm going to use my linking phrase to start off my last sentence. Therefore, it is evident that jealousy is significant in the destruction of the character of Desdemona, as Desdemona's reputation is questioned as Othello makes it his mission to prove her unfaithfulness. So that last link, I'm linking it all together. It's very academic, the language that I'm using, and I've presented my argument in my point. I've explained it and given evidence, and then I've linked it all together at the end to further reinforce and highlight and amplify my argument. So moving on to the conclusion now. So now that I've taken the time, I've proven everything, I've gone through the point, the example, the explanation, the evidence, the link. Now I just have to conclude. And the conclusion is really quite simple because it's quite similar to the introduction. However, it is an integral part of your essay, so you need to ensure that you do it properly. The conclusion just has to be around 2 sentences, and you're going to restate your argument and restate your points. And obviously you want to try and do this in a different way. So you don't want to be too repetitive. So if you can find some synonyms, a different way of saying it, then that's marvelous. The inferior side of human nature is vividly portrayed as Shakespeare utilizes the themes of revenge and jealousy to drive the plot and character development of the play Othello. These deplorable qualities ultimately depict the demise of Cassio and Desdemona. Now, looking back on this now, I think I could have said the deplorable qualities of... Oh no, I already did it. Sorry, I said theme of revenge and jealousy in the first sentence, and then I said my 2 characters in the last sentence, and you see how my argument is there. I said the inferior side of human nature and contributes to the demise of the characters of Cassio and Desdemona. I hope that's been helpful in terms of giving you an idea of the expectations of a literature essay. Remember, different teachers do teach different varying styles, but I hope that that's made sense to you and sort of put that literature essay skills video in a bit of context. Please remember to like the video if you found it helpful and to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.